May 31st Gallup poll showed that Americans are not highly focused on the European financial crisis. Whoa, what a surprise there. I think 1/3 of them didn't even know anything was going on. And that just goes along with how much Americans pay attention to things that are important, like how blindsided they were by the housing collapse we had and by our 2008 crisis. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure when their paper garbage doesn't buy them anything, when the dollar collapses, maybe their alarm bells will start going off in their head at that point. Hello everybody, thanks for joining me today on the Moneybag 73 channel. I have an article I'm going to post over on Moneybags World, the link will be below. Gloomy UK central bank sees outlook darken. Something I don't talk a whole lot about is the problems that are happening over in Europe. And I thought, it was about time that I finally did a video on the crisis in Europe. I was wondering, any of you that are over there, if your family members or friends just not really paying. I mean, I kind of take for granted the fact that all Europeans are paying attention. But, I'm reminded of how, Americans were just blindsided by the whole housing collapse and then the '08 crisis. I mean, they knew things were in a bad way, but they figured, they'll just be papered over and they'll get fixed. And I don't know, people weren't really stressing out like now. Like at work, no one's talking about the crisis in Europe. I don't hear anybody talking about, nobody I know ever talks about what's happening over there in Europe. And it just blows me away. It's going to have a huge effect here on the U.S. And we're basically in the same boat as a lot of the European countries. I mean, our debt to GDP is over 100%. We're the biggest debtor nation on the planet. So, I guess it just goes along with all the videos I do about the sheeple, just not even paying attention to what's happening. But it really amazes me that nobody even talks about it. All I hear anyone talk about is sports and television shows, Dancing with the Stars, American Idol. That's like all I ever hear people talk about at work. Or, where they went to lunch and just, little small talk type stuff. But, so anyway, I was wondering what you're hearing over there and how many people are paying attention, because the whole thing's coming down. And I'm sure if you're over there in Europe, you can already feel that. There's, we're having bank runs. I mean, first it was a $500 billion problem, then it was a $1 trillion problem, and then a €2 trillion problem or dollar problem, whatever you want to say. I mean, it's gotten so big, and I'm really believing that there's, Bernanke and Geithner in the back room there making up some deal to shore up the banks in Europe, along with the ECB, which is the ECB's printed up way more money than the Federal Reserve here in the United States. I mean, there's just today I had something here about ECB's balance sheet hits a new record high today. Went up $31 billion the past week, or 31 billion euros. I'm sorry, I'm always thinking in dollars. And it's at 3.05 trillion euros, or $3.75 trillion. I mean, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet's at 2.65 trillion, so $1 trillion less than the ECB. And now they're the lender of last resort. No one else can loan the money that's needed to be loaned, which it won't fix anything. There's no way of fixing the whole debt problem. The whole thing's going to collapse. But I don't believe they're going to let it collapse. I mean, they had an opportunity in 2008, like Jim Sinclair was saying yesterday in an article that, or in a little piece he wrote to his readers on mindset. He said that the problems in '08 are greater than they, now than they were in 2008. And he said also that if you believe there's a political appetite for the collapse of the Western financial system, they had a perfect chance in '08. And they didn't accept the great opportunity to purge the system of banksters for political reasons. They didn't let it go then. They're not going to let it go now. I believe that the Federal Reserve, I honestly feel that they're going to come up with some type of, it'll probably be a loan, like they had, $18 trillion in secret loans back in '08, or $16 trillion. And a lot of those went to European banks. So there'll probably be some huge loan, maybe $500 billion, $750 billion, whatever. And then the ECB, they'll rack up their balance sheet another $1 trillion. They're not going to let it go down. They can just keep adding trillions to the balance sheet. That's my opinion. They're not going to let it collapse. So that's why it's so pertinent to have precious metals. You got to have real money. You got to have gold and silver. When the central banks, the two largest central banks, are just going to keep cranking up the balance sheet. They're going to keep printing money. So you have to have real money. I can't understand people. That's the other thing I want to ask you, friends over there in Europe. I guess you've already told me, friends and family, some of them, they don't understand why they need to have real money. But are they letting like 50,000 euros just sit in the bank? Or are most of your friends and family taking that money out? If I was over in a euro-based monetary country that uses the euro, I wouldn't have $1 in the bank, except, just maybe the minimum to pay some bills. But I don't even really have money in the bank here. Because this is going to come home, just like it's happening over there. It's going to come here to the U.S. So I believe in being your own central bank, having your own gold and silver reserves in your own hands. But so anyway, I wanted to real quick give you a couple comments by the Governor Mervyn King of the Central Bank of England. He just told the Parliament's Treasury Committee, he said, "We're in the middle of a deep crisis with enormous challenges to put our own banking system right, and challenges for the rest of the world that they're struggling with." He said in the last 6 weeks, he's very struck by how much has changed since we produced our May inflation report. And then he says, "We haven't run out of road in terms of our basic policy weapon, cha-ching, 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 asset purchases, and we're prepared to use that if necessary." Money printing. I mean, just like James Sinclair says, it's QE to infinity. There's no way around it. He said yesterday, Jim Sinclair, that he had never received more deflationary articles sent to him in one day ever in the last 40, 50 years. Everyone's talking deflation. I've seen tons of deflation. Don't agree with it. I agree with James Sinclair. I agree with John Williams. I agree with Peter Schiff. The list goes on of people that see inflation, not deflation. So we're about to have some huge quantitative easing, inflationary money printing, in my opinion. I believe that's why they've been holding down gold and silver. They've been holding down gold and silver because they know there's going to be some huge event of money printing coming up. So rather push down the real money before it runs up than to leave it up here and have it run higher. So that's what I believe is happening. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about Europe today. I haven't talked about that crisis very much, but it's just a huge debt problem. It's the whole world monetary debt system that's collapsing, and most people aren't even aware of it. And got to have real money. I just don't know what else you could. I mean, besides the other things you have to do, like have a food supply and guns and ammo and all that type of stuff. For worst case scenario, Mad Max type, which I'm hoping can be averted, but I'm not planning on it. So, I'm planning for the worst, hoping for the best. Take care, guys. See you later.